See, I represent the Existential Knowledge Foundation, a group that has been trying to understand how children learn and how modern schooling, etc., has not taken into consideration the natural process that children have. And the pandemic is giving a very different situation in which the schools have kind of lost their grip on children, and children have more time, more freedom, and actually, the online situation has also not been worked out properly, and I don't think it is easy also, because the children anyway far away from the teacher gives children far more space and freedom. So it's not going to be the same, unless we work out another kind of policing system to ensure that children don't move and all that. But so this is a very, very interesting situation in which children have more freedom, but and so it's very important to understand that how does this thing work out? How do we reimagine the spaces right now children have, and relook at giving them the freedom to learn, because that is what they are born with. They are born with the natural tendency to learn, but schools have been systematically damaging this. Schools and the schooled parents, because that is the way the things works. So here, the session that I am planning to do right now is to look at certain fundamental aspects of how children learn, and how modern spaces that we unintentionally has created is against the nature of learning. Because learning is not a choice. Learning is something that happens irrespective of whether you want it or not, because it's a choiceless activity. Learning is a choiceless activity. But what children learn is something that modernity is not able to understand. That is the reason why that we all, after going through schools, have acquired the teacher mind. We are all basically teachers because we have imbibed the experience of teaching. We have imbibed the experience of authority. We have imbibed the experience of, dependence. So all this basically is the result of our learning. We have learned all these things. So what that means is that we need to relook at what is really learning. How has schools changed our cognitive, psychological, and physical behavior? That is something that we need to look at. I came to this because I have been, exploring children from a very, very different perspective. I've been looking at children in rural travel areas and documenting what they do. And after years of documentation, I realized that there is a proper system that nature has given that enables them to learn. So this is what I would wish to share with you, that what really is learning, and how modernity has turned against the nature of learning and against children, basically, and how we have created an environment that is fundamentally against learning itself. So this is, including homes, the way we have organized our homes itself, the whole modernity. That's what I would like to say. How the whole modernity has turned against the nature of learning that children are imbibed with. So let me share the PowerPoint videos and then presentation, and then we will maybe discuss few things about it. So this is the foundation, Existential Knowledge Foundation, meaning that we want to understand what is the existential relevance of knowledge. Because modern people, like we have now, seems to look at knowledge merely as a means to get some job. More than that, it has no other relevance actually. So in that process, we have completely missed out the real nature of learning and knowledge that is embedded in living. So this needs to be re-examined, brought back, and from that context, understand what is that we should be doing with our children. What is the kind of knowledge that children should have. So, in fact, the most criminal activity that we have invented is the idea of teaching. Because teaching is absolutely unnatural. Learning is natural. Learning is not a choice. The fact that your senses are there means you are learning. It's not a choice. When you see, when you look, you're seeing. When you're hearing the sound, this is not because you're choosing it. It's happening. So the functioning of senses is absolutely choiceless, unless, of course, physically damaged or something. Otherwise, and it is through the senses that we get, the knowledge gets, imbibed, and then also there's a whole system behind it. That's what, at least some of it we will explore today. And the most damaging aspect of modernity is that it has turned all of us into analyzers of second-hand information, believers of experts, total dependence on experts. And we have forgotten that we can learn, we can inquire, we can, on our own see children, understand them. But we have forgotten that we have these skills, tools, and abilities. So this is another very important thing, that the whole, the session that we have just now is basically to initiate inquiry and create doubts. So I would request you not to believe in anything that I say, but also please examine that how have you believed everything that you've read from the book or some teacher has told you. What is in that you have understood directly by using your own senses? So this is the basic challenge that we need to take up actually. So this is the foundation that we have. You can, there are many websites, but you can, look at this for our latest one. This is the Gmail that we have. We have also different WhatsApp groups in which many discussions do happen. And the whole purpose is that we come together as a group and reclaim our inquiring ability and share our, findings. The findings actually means what you observe, which is not to make another person believe, but to initiate further observation. So the whole, purpose of our meetings is that how do we help each other in reclaiming our ability to observe and create knowledge. Now, creating knowledge is another word that I'm sure we have never come across, because that is something that we have never encountered in our whole modern schooling paradigm. Somebody will create knowledge and give it to us, and we will consume it. So we need to, first of all, understand what is this thing called knowledge and how does it get created. So this is that quickly that I would, talk today, that the context of this research, what prevents understanding, then the condition that allows learning to take place, why we learn, what we learn, how we learn, and of course the future possibilities and what we could be doing together. The context is that, of course, I hated schools right from my young age. My parents were teachers. So naturally, my home was also turned into a school. Now, this is the biggest danger that the NEP is proposing, that how to turn parents into teachers. I think this would be the biggest crime, because parents, anyway, schooled parents are anyway behaving like teachers only. It's extremely important to bring back parents as people who trust children, who love children, and who are not into authoritarian behavior, who are not into teaching, So it's very important to reclaim the sanctity of home as home itself, a place where children can be free, absolutely free of fear, just under the the ambience of love, care, trust. This is what children need. Never fear, never stress. Because this is what modern parenting is creating for children these days. And what prevents understanding is that we have been cognitively rewired as I told you, not to learn, not to observe, not to understand. Because from the context of learning, we have shifted our attention from learning the world to learning the world. So that has its own consequences, and we'll go into that a little bit. So what is very important is to understand that formation of the mind. What this means is that each and every living being is born to particular contexts. But when you are born, we are born with certain possibilities, but the context actually then creates what the particular qualities that are needed to understand that particular situation. For example, if you take language, for example, that our ability to speak, communicate, use language is something that is given to all living beings, all human beings. But if you're born in Bangalore, you have one kind of situation. If you're born in Bombay, you have another situation. So depending upon where you're born, that these different languages will be the child will acquire that. Not only that, the context also. Suppose you are living near the river, if you are near the desert, so all that will be responsible for the formation of your total beingness, including your deeper needs, physical, your taste, everything will by and by be dictated by this. But one very important thing is that the human being is only a potential, actually. So that is very important to understand, that even though we have tremendous possibilities, potentials, but the formative condition will dictate how that will happen. So the external conditions are extremely important, and to the extent that even our ability to walk, talk, see, all that depends on the external condition. Which also means that if the child is born into a dark place and kept there for a few months, their ability to see itself will not happen. So all this remains physical. Even our physical nature remains as a potential only. So I would like to share with you the one experience of a feral children. In this case, these children were brought up by animals, and they just could not walk after that. So because they were with the first one was with dogs. Her parents were drunkards, so left the child with dogs, never took care of her, and suddenly then for a few years she lived with the dogs, and her behavior was like dog.
I started walking around.
Hello, can you please keep your this thing shut, please? Hello, can you please close your mute yourself, please. Please mute everyone, please. So the one that you see, the eating with the hands up, that child was brought up in a with the hands, meaning that the child was left there, and both his hands were like punk, like the wings, and his lips turned into beaks, meaning he was eating like a bird would eat, pecking, And see, all these children, the other one was in India only, in 1929 or so. This child was with the monkeys. So they acquired the ability. So this is the potential of human being, is to absorb, imbibe, and become. This has to be understood very, very clearly. So this is another very interesting experiment in 1930s. Two psychologists adopted a baby chimp, tried to raise her as their child alongside their real infant son, Donald. Don't confuse this with Donald, Trump. This is another Donald. To see if this caused the chimp to learn human behavior. This was the exercise. But they stopped the experiment after a few months because the son actually started behaving like the monkey. So this is the precarious aspect about human child. Human child has a tremendous potential. We are born with potential. Unlike the animals, the extent to which they can deviate is very less. A monkey will remain a monkey. Whereas that is not the case with the human child. Human child will absorb what it is in the environment and imbibe that and learn that, So this is a very, very important thing, because in this context is what we should look at as, what does teaching do to a child? When a parent is constantly into teaching and a child is constantly telling no, 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 don't, what does a child imbibe? So this is another very important thing to understand, that literates learn the word, illiterates learn the world. So again, if this is the context of a child, where the child is only seeing people involved with the word, reading, writing, thinking, and storytelling, imagining, everything in the context of word, what would the child then acquire? What kind of skills, what kind of abilities the child would acquire? And illiterates learn the world. So this is the basic thing that we must hold, and also understand that when a child is born, its potential is actually to learn the world. And then how do we then rewire the child to learn the world? So this is to be understood actually. And learning the word requires different sorts of sets of skills, tools, processes, abilities, and qualities. So this is another very important thing to be. And another thing that we are dealing with, we are constantly dealing with ready-made knowledge. So what is that would do to your cognitive system? How would it engage with ready-made knowledge instead of creating knowledge? Instead of engaging in process of exploration, if it is dealing with ready-made knowledge, what would it do? The tangible, experienceable real world is replaced with description, decontextualized, oversimplified, distorted, fragmented. This is what we give the child, totally oversimplified, which also means that what is the message that you're giving when you are giving simplified version? Naturally, you would make the child believe that the child has no capacity, no ability. So this is what actually happens because of learning the word, that knowledge precedes learning, knowing, and the product precedes process. Imagination precedes and distorts experience, because what reading makes you do is to imagine. And then, of course, creativity is killed. And now we are telling that where is creativity gone? Where is curiosity gone? When we have killed all that. So, of course, we learn consumerism. This is the first product. So the very nature of language changes. This is also very important to look at from the way the digital, ambience, how is it also changing the language? So it's at this point, it's very interesting to look at how the language has shifted in these three different realms. One from of learning the world, learning the word, and learning the digital. How was it changing the nature of language, our nature of interaction, etc. And of course, you must have understood that learning the word shifted our senses, especially the sense of hearing. Language which was heard, which was the very nature of language was for hearing, now it has turned into reading, and and then it has become an activity of the mind rather than activity of senses. So what would digital do would be a very important thing to look at. So this is something that people, by paying attention to what is happening to children, we would be able to kind of decode that what is happening. So this would be an interesting exploration, actually. So as I told you that, please stay between agreements and disagreements. Right now, that is what is important. So children misunderstood. This is the most important aspect, that children are biologically equipped to create knowledge of the world, but modernity turns them into analyzers of second-hand information. What actually analysis here means is that, the information gets stored in an organized manner. This is what, by analysis, what we achieve. Someone is giving information which you are organizing it and storing it. Ultimately, it is about storing information. How would you store it is what the choice that children are given. Either you memorize, rote memory, or you organize it and store it. But we pretend that storing information through analysis is some kind of a great ability. It's actually a worse ability than, it's more dangerous than just a rote memorization. At least you will have the humility that you have not understood. So the whole paradigm of modern education is how to teach children. And then we have created a total system based on that. So there are some researchers that are now relooking at this, and this person, Joseph Enrich, and this group has done a very interesting, they came across an interesting, situation in which, from where they developed this word, Western, educated, industrialized, rich, democratic. When they realize that this is what they are imposing onto the whole world. But of course, the non-Western people have still not understood this whole dynamics of it, and we still believe in whatever the West is talking about. So this is one statement. It is taken from this thing, that what they claim is that weird children are culturally, experientially impoverished environment. This is almost like, malnourished children in another context. So this is to be very much understood, that, when we say words like underprivileged, we must actually say that underprivileged in what way? Is it culturally, or is it just economically? We are actually mixing all these things and creating a one meaning with that. So there are two paradigms of research. The regular research that has been happening till now is what is on how to teach children. It's a teaching paradigm, and I call this deficit syndrome, which means that you're taken for granted that children don't know anything, children are incapable, and you have to give everything. So this is also the message that you give children, that they are incapable. And naturally, this is about conditioning. And the paradigm that I am talking about is that how children learn. And learning paradigm is in which that it's a completeness syndrome, that the child is complete, internally, and it is only awakening to its completeness provided there is a situation, that is conducive for this. So we would look at why, what, how children learn. And of course, this is a simultaneous happening. It's not a, a sequential thing. Just for the sake of presentation, one is doing this. There are no fragmentation that happens in the real process of living, actually. Why we learn is that it is to sustain life. That I hope is very well understood by looking at what is happening all around us, that how life all the time ensures that life is sustained by overproducing everything. So it creates a condition for sustenance of life. This condition is very important to understand. Condition of trust, ambience of love, freedom as an existentially given thing, not as something that you and me can give to anybody. Feeling of security is again inborn, at home with the context, being present. So presence is another very important thing to understand, that being present is choiceless. It's only when you get into education, that mind-based education, that you realize that you're all the time absent to the real world. You're always in the mind thinking of something else. This is another thing, that being in timelessness is another quality that is actually there, which again we have lost in the modern process. And these qualities are also internally given to us. So external condition and internally given qualities are also, conducive for sustaining life. So trust, care, curiosity, creativity, spontaneity, handling fear, overcoming fear, all these things are already something that children actually have. Even morality is innate. So the true nature of a child has all these qualities, which because of the modern context, we don't allow anything to happen. We go against this. And what we do to children is we give them irritation, boredom, anger, rebellion. They learn to cheat, they lie, and they are turned, competition is something that is totally unnatural to children. So, and of course, you have heard all these new names, AIDBD, ADBD, so many things that the West keeps creating, and you get trapped in that. So let's look at just one of this, One disease is called oppositional defiant disorder. When a child behaves in a negative, hostile, defiant way, seems angry, resentful, lose temper, argue with adults, annoy people on purpose, blame other people for his. No, who teaches this to a child? Is the child born with it? This is something that modernity is refusing to accept. The child is not born with this ability, these kind of things. It is the adults that are teaching children all these things, and then you're blaming the child for all this. And the absolute criminal activity that is happening. So true learning is the process by which children root themselves to the context by awakening what is inherent to be part of the regenerative process of life. So the conditions are, the actual condition a child has is, the child is in the condition of unknown, and then the child, that is what actually gives the child the qualities that are required, to awaken, to be humble, to create knowledge. And it is in this process that our senses get awakened. And senses is that which connects the inner and the outer world. So the activities that children do in indigenous communities has to do with sensitizing senses and developing a cognitive systems in that process actually. And you don't need a Montessori to do this. In fact, Montessori methods are against the nature of child. So what I find very interesting about the Western system is that, like, for example, somebody like Montessori, she has understood children very well, but then turned that into a system, which means at a core level, the child's process has not been understood, because children need autonomy to function. They don't need your system within which the child should, develop their senses. So this is something that is absolutely necessary to understand. So certain redefinitions are required if we want to understand, because we are all trapped in the linguistic realm. So if you want to understand the experiential realm of children, certain redefinitions are important. Creativity, in the context of natural learning, the condition of unknown awakens creativity of the child, because creativity is the act when you're encountering the unknown. But where in modernity do you have given that opportunity? Curiosity is embedded in living beings. It's not something that you have to tell children to be curious. Questioning again in the realm of natural learning is in experience. Questioning happens. It's not a linguistic activity. It's an experiential activity. Imitation. This is another word that has to be understood very well. That what children imitate is very different from what you wish children to imitate. Because for you, imitation is in the realm of language. What you tell, they repeat. That's not the way imitation works in the real life of children. A child imitates an idea of a house, but recreates it with their imagination. So the child is now imitating the idea of the house and making a house. with what the child has. So the idea gets imitated, but the actual work gets created, so there is creative. So play is the reenactment of experience. Recreating and reliving experience is play, which also means that the meaning of reflection is the same. Reflection means actually to recreate experience through play. And toy is the object that is used as props in the process of reenactment of experience. So in this case, the child wants to play mother, so that, that wooden thing became her child. And the same wooden thing was turned into a bus, into something else, So actually everything is in process. There is no product as far as the child is concerned. The child uses what it has, and so that is in fact, the whole jugaad behavior comes from this ability to use something for something else. So any object is turned into a toy. Playfulness is a quality embedded in the child. So there is an activity called play that modernity has misunderstood. It's not an activity, it's a quality. So everything that the child does is playful. Even eating, every activity is turned into play. So this child was, he was eating this coconut piece, took a bite, and then looked at it and started telling it is the Nandi bull with the horn. And then immediately he changed it into the moon, half moon, It's an immediate, imagination. So the toy is a very misunderstood aspect of modernity, actually, It's actually in the process of, creating knowledge. Children do many of these activities, which we call as play, and making, using toys, using objects as toys. So reflection, play is the reflection that children do to revisit and understand their past experience. Imagination is another thing that we have in modernity. We have only imagination of imagination because we read and imagine. Here, the child is imagining those stones to be their children. So this is a very, very interesting. Here, the child has just taken those two combs, and that is the aeroplane for the child. Abstraction is another thing that we have not understood at all. A child is constantly abstract. Abstraction again is an internal process. The child is not doing it purposely. Abstraction happens in the process of exploration, actually. The very nature of the child is innovation. Any object is, innovatively used. Improvisation is another. So the child was given a truck. So when the child opened the box, the child imagined the box to be the garage itself. So it's as if the truck is coming after the garage. So a more immediate improvisation of situations is something that the child is doing. Invention, of course, affordances. This is another interesting thing in which the child is able to imagine something immediately, even though the child has not seen before. She has never seen a binocular, but the very form invited her to look through it, and she doesn't have the word binocular or anything like that. She's just looking through it, So this is another, metaphor is another very important thing to look at, that our understanding of metaphor is in language. But you will see that every activity a child does is kind of metaphoric, comparing one thing to the other. For example, the coconut was compared to the to the moon, the bull, that constantly happens.
नहीं बेटा, अभी लैपटॉप नहीं कर सकते. तुम करो, कुछ अच्छी चीजें करना शुरू करो, उसके बाद तुम बोलेंगे कोई चीजों को करके देंगे. अभी जरूरत नहीं है बेटा. तुम
क्या बच्चे को क्या एडवाइस दे रहे हैं बच्चे को प्लीज ये सुनते सुनते मत एडवाइस मत किया करो.
नहीं बेटा, बात
I think you should listen to this dialogue.
कंपेयर नहीं कर रही अनन्या, बट तुम तो वर्ड्स बनो. तुम अगर ऐसा राइटिंग्स लिखना शुरू कर देंगे, इफ यू आर प्रूविंग योरसेल्फ, आई कैन से दिस कि yes, Ananya is using laptop in a right way. I want her.
Okay, so that is the what happens between mother and child. So metaphor in action. So this child is using she had seen me doing, I was using some laptop and she was sitting there. Just this greeting card became her laptop. And these two became father and mother. And then she laid it down and said that they are sleeping. So there is a constant comparison between some aspects, some attributes of the real living being or object that the child is looking at, and recreating the idea, the toy then and there. So this is the thing, the child is already given a system to understand the real world autonomously, and our response is to distract the child from the real world and replace it with miniaturized and distorted versions. This is what we are constantly doing to a child. So what the child learns is the real world, and real world actually means that various attributes of things that you see around, which means that what you see is the general form. Function means what it does, process means how it is created, with what materials it is done, and the structural stability that it attains, and of course the context and the relationship that it has with the rest of the things. So this is something that the child is trying to understand. And other aspect is that the child is experiencing the whole, exploring the parts, and reintegration happens. So this is the process by which how children learn. So form meaning what something looks like. I'm sure most of you must have done this, kept the book like this and said it is the house. So it's comparing how one thing looks like another thing. Function meaning actually, like I'm sure most of you also must have done this, put a bedsheet over a table and said that this is the house. So here we have explored the function of the house, which is the enclosed space. So what needs to be kept in mind is that if all of us are doing the same thing, that means that there is something biological about it, because so that needs to be taken seriously and then looked at. That why is the child doing this? Why is every child doing certain activity? It is from that we will be able to deduce that there is a logic behind this, that if every child is doing it, there has to be a reason. So this is what we need to explore actually. Process of making. I'm sure all of you must have also made your own house using pillows, tables, chair, and different things that are there in the house. Or I'm talking about the modern context, but otherwise, of course, going out and doing it in with whatever material is available. As a child, I'm sure most of you must have done this. Structure, of course, is something that you attain as you try and make something. Property of material is actually, like, for example, I'm sure you must have seen how a child behaves when the child sits on a sofa. This bouncing that the child does, So this was something that I came across here in a railway station. The chair is very smooth, so the child is sliding. So I will also share with you something about drawing, because this is another very important thing that is to be understood. That you see, every activity the child is doing are cognitive activities if we don't interfere in that activity. But if we interfere with them, then that cognitive activity will change into a very distorted kind of activities. So drawing, if the child is allowed to draw, if there's a condition for children to draw on their own totally, then it becomes an activity in which the child is learning the three-dimensional world in terms of two-dimensional space. In a way, you can also say it is the play that children do on two-dimensional surface. So experience is the source of both playful exploration and playful drawing. So the context is that the child is trying to recreate experience. And I will also show you just 2-3 examples of drawing that can point to the fact that this is a cognitive activity. Number one is that you will see the similarity between how a child learns to walk and talk with drawing. Like, how the blabbering then becomes a story finally, how scribbling turns into very systematically into a drawing of a whole thing actually, So scribbling too. Another very important thing that you can see is that children draw what they observe. So the human face, when they draw a human being, they draw the face first. I mean, probably in the initial stages, only the face and nothing else. And birds and animals, vehicles, usually on the side. So what they see is what they draw. So this is very interesting. Unusual drawings. The one on top left side is drawing of a windshield with the wiper. The child who drew this sits next to the driver every day. So this is something that the child drew. And the one on the left, the buffalo, is drawn by a child who actually looks after her buffalo. This is her buffalo. So every morning she goes and feeds this buffalo. So naturally she is seeing the buffalo from the front. So this is what she do. But most children didn't draw like this. It was always on the side. So this drawing thing, I wish to say that actually we had run a school near Pune for 3 years, and we called it Reimagining Schools. In that experiment, we let children do whatever they felt like. So we actually reorganized our space in such a way that children could spontaneously do what is natural to them. So the drawings of 3 years we collected together, and we began to look at that, and that is when we found that that drawing is a cognitive activity. So till then, drawing was we never thought that drawing has such a important role actually. So one can actually understand the importance of drawing by understanding that helps children to connect the two realms of three-dimensional realm and two-dimensional realm. So that is a very important thing to look at, and how writing itself is not a cognitive activity, whereas drawing is a cognitive activity. So ready-made toys are more dangerous than schools. Ready-made toy means starting from the rattle that you give when the child is not even 1 or 2 years, to distract, to give them sound. That our assumption is that we have to actually produce a separate sound to make the child hear. I don't know why we even invented this thing. Can't the child hear without all that? So this distraction is something that we must understand, that first of all, why do we treat children as beings that need so much of help? Secondly, why do we think that these things are necessary, these kind of toys? Because the very word toy is a modern invention. There is no toy in the languages of oral traditions. So what actually did the toy do to the total cognitive system? Activity was turned into, what we first did was that we turned normal activity into work, play, learn. These activities were modern, our invention. Otherwise, for a child, it is one activity which is playful exploration of everything, without creating, that into 3 separate type of activities. Because work is something that the child should not do, so child doesn't like to work. Learn is something that the child should do, but the child doesn't like to do. So the child learns to be bored by that activity, and play is given in evening time, so that in the evening the child can go and play. So you're creating total confusion into the child. And what the toy does is that when the toy is given, then the child is now compelled to play with it. So toy is what actually in one sense creates play as a separate activity also. Otherwise everything the child is exploring, every object that is around in the house, in the world around the child, and it is actually part of its exploration of trying to understand what is the world all about. So that's the confusion that the thing does. And how children learn is another very important thing to understand. One thing is that the child learns the world as it is. Complexity of the world is not reduced when the child is exploring autonomously. But what the child does, is to turn it into simpler activities. Now, if you turn that into simpler activity, the child will misunderstand that that is what is to be learned. So the child will do it, but the child will do it, meaning the child is already given by nature to learn in a manner of simplification. That is what we need to understand, instead of we simplifying that for the child. So the how the child learns. So language, we should actually look at language. What is the role of actually language and how the child learns language? In fact, the child uses body itself becomes, quite often as language, in the sense that ultimately this is for communication. That is what is to be understood. That, and how does the child communicate is what we need to look at. So this was a very interesting kind of thing in which, let me share the sound and then you will share computer sound. Just give me a minute. So now please listen to this sound. So this is very interesting, that how the child heard the sound and named the object with the same sound, because the child wanted to go, child wanted the parent to take the child to the swing. So his way of communicating was to use the same sound. Like this, I'm sure you must have also heard how children, name mixer and anything in the house, on their own way. So children, in the initial stages, children create their own language, own sound, own words actually. So, and in the later stage, what happens is that when the adults provide the word, children hear the sound and the meaning is created in experience actually. So when, for example, when the parent is telling, bring a glass of water or keep the chair near the table or something like that, the child understands these words from the context itself. So that is the ability of the child to be in the context and then make out what this word represents, which object or what meaning it conveys, So the child is actually capable of learning language on their own. For example, if you look at Bangalore slums, children, by the time they reach 4 years, can speak about 4 to 5 languages with no effort at all. And this is more so in the slum areas where there is absolutely no teaching, and in the slum areas, you will find that many 4 or 5 languages people stay together. Of course, in Bangalore, this condition is very common, that at least 3 languages the child is able to, almost everywhere in Bangalore, that, at least 3 or 4 languages the child is able to hear, and they pick up like this. So, the distortion begins to happen when the adult provides the meaning itself. Then the role of the body and senses is removed in that process. That is how we have created a mind-created linguistic world, because most of us are, without any experience, talking about things. So this is what we have is conceptual language and not experiential language. So I'm just giving you some clues about how different the language itself gets created, and how categories children make in order to make the language and understanding of the world. I will give you one interesting example, that a child was actually, seeing a peacock flying, and the child pointed out and said that is a crow, because the first category for all the flying things were crow for the child. When the peacock landed and started walking, then the child pointed and said that is a dog, kutta. Because for all the 4-legged walking creatures, the child had named kutta. So there were 2 categories. All the flying ones were kaka and all the walking ones were kuta. So this is the way the child slowly begins to create categories. And of course, it keeps fine tuning. This is what actually happens. As the child explores more and more, as the child observes, various differences, the child then begins to expand the category and fine tune the category. In that process, what happens is that the mind and the body gets integrated, or it retains the integrity of the body and mind, and it retains the integrity of word and the world. Now, this is what gets fragmented in the modern process, where we fragment the world and the word. Naturally, the body and mind gets fragmented. So for us, the educated people, we are physically present, mentally absent all the time, precisely because we are never present, that the integrity of the word and the world has not been retained in the process of growing up. So this is the damage that schooling does. So our formation of the mind, as I am bringing back this thing, that what should be the content of the mind? Who should create the mind? How it should be created? So these are the questions that we need to hold, because, see, naturally there is a way of things happening. So how have we intervened and created confusion? This is what we need to understand. So I will show you two more very interesting videos to point out. Look at the way the child is observing, is trying to climb. And the dog is just using its instinct, that's all. Whereas the child will wait, observe, observation is key. So other very important thing is that the next video I'm going to show you is the most important video I have, because it really shows that how, by recognizing similarity and differences, the patterns get recognized and how organization of knowledge takes place actually. This is true of all the senses, but let's look at just this one. In this, please watch the way this child is observing and making the comparisons. Thank you. Thank you. So, so again, I'm coming back to this idea that, what we need to do is to initiate inquiry in order to reclaim our natural beingness. Unless we do it, we won't be able to do anything for our children. See, the modern notion is that we are there to do something for the child. And all workshops that everybody attends is to help, not to look at oneself, but to find methods to do something with the child. So application of knowledge is something that we are all trained to do. What we need to do is to get back to inquiry, get back to observation. So there are a few, activities that we are planning that has to do with no teaching courses, because there is no teaching at all in these courses. And the idea is to how do we de-school ourselves? How do we address this whole learning as a process of acquiring certain qualities fine tuning our abilities of observation, and becoming aware of habits, because there are lots of wrong habits of the mind, physical habits, psychological habits, cognitive habits that we have acquired, that we need to, for a simple example is that how we have trained in concluding and reasoning, meaning how we use reason to conclude, but we keep talking about openness, but our mind is constantly trained to conclude, not to keep anything open. So holding doubt is something that is something impossible, because our training right from school, right from day one, is to conclude, is to repeat what that ready-made knowledge that the teacher is giving, which means a concluded knowledge. Agreeing with the concluded knowledge is our whole training. So how do we initiate process? So this whole courses, whatever courses that we are offering, is self-transformation. It is never a process in which, of course, we will confuse people, we will give certain kind of feedback, but no teaching is offered actually in these courses. And that is the way that we should be also with children, that how do we stop teaching children? So these courses are basically for anyone who is interested in understanding how to create knowledge, retaining our cognitive ability, and addressing the damages of schooling. So parents, teachers, and I think it is very important that people who are pursuing higher studies must re-establish a foundation for learning. Otherwise, they keep on becoming slaves of the system by just agreeing, and that's all what is happening. So this is something that is very important. And of course, whoever wants to venture into new vocations, how to be in the unknown is the basic quality that we need to require, because it is only in the unknown our ability to become creative will be reclaimed actually. And these are the just examples of few courses that we are planning to do. Of course, this will something that keeps growing and changing. Understanding what is why children learn. This is actually from the real context. So the process would be that the parents who are, or people who are participating in this, would observe their children, document them, and then as a collaborative effort come together and learn together. So that would be the process. Certain examples would be shown from our side also to initiate more observation. That's all. And so drawing would be one, foundation for learning, reimagining art. Art is another dangerous thing that is now being promoted as a subject actually. See, actually it's a sense of beauty that it needs to be awakened, and not understood art as another subject to be learned. You see, every time we talk about holistic, and our assumption is that we become whole by adding many parts. That is not the true meaning of being whole. Being whole is using the qualities as a whole, meaning your scientific temperament, which is actually a quality, observation ability, sense of beauty, sense of value, all these are part of our integral being. So reimagining art is to re-establish beauty as a quality of the being, not to study that as another subject. There's another very important thing that has been completely forgotten, that how colonization is happening through knowledge, and how do we decolonize through understanding the deeper aspects of what constitute culture actually. And the courses, of course, are really not about language. Medium is immaterial for learning, but very useful in conversations. So because it is actually about observation and sharing, it would be interesting if people of same language can come together and share. So naturally then we would be doing this in different language groups. And this is also being planned, that how to ensure their observation, playfulness, and exploration is retained. And of course, this is something that the parents can also take part along with children, but with, of course, with no instruction, no teaching, no help and things like that. And we're also planning, because in many of the sessions that we have been doing, we have found that many parents have parents who have had autistic children with them have found very, very important takeaways from our workshops, because this is an area that needs to be again relooked at from the way that that modernity is promoting something that is what they are promoting is absolutely harmful. So this needs to be explored more sensitively and more pro-children type, not to control and not to make them behave in a certain way, but to look at it more sensitively and letting things happen in a more sensitive manner. So this would be another area that we would wish to take part. And then this is another thing, that existential research is something that it's a collaborative research that we are hoping that more and more people will come across. So we would like to share that what we have been doing is we have been just documenting what children do, putting that together and enabling people to learn from that, but by using that to initiate more observation and more research. So there is a need for a collaborative research, people's research, community research, in which we need to take back the our ability to learn. So there are many areas that we are proposing in the natural learning, and of course in the unnatural learning, which means the one is the colonized system, other one is using mediums to learn, like whether it is text or digital. How does it completely rewire the process? So, and of course this is really a long-term kind of an idea in which more and more people should participate, and a total reimagination can happen. Right now, all the reimagination or rethinking that is happening is nothing but repair job. Repair job is not going to help at all, because repair job is again and again basing itself on the given paradigm, that how to teach is the given paradigm. So if you look at alternative schools or homeschooling, all these are trapped in teaching itself, or there are wrong notions about what is knowledge to be learned, so any reimagination should fundamentally consider why are we learning at all, and that we are biologically equipped to learn, and learning is a choiceless activity. So a total reimagination would need to relook at all these things that we have taken for granted. So here we end. Thank you very much. And we can have some quick reflections and
so Dinan sir, it is I'm Manisha here. I would like to say a few things.
Yeah.
So I'm amazed, and I was pretty much a little bit, I've heard about and I've experienced it myself with my kids. I have never put them in a school for, marks or for achieving those numbers and all. I just wanted to give that environment of social interaction, because I was a little away and working full time. And now with lockdown, they don't have even that. But by themselves, they are ensuring and they're learning and they're enjoying the entire thing. I think it is time for me to become a non-teaching parent.
Yeah.
I am looking forward.
Manisha, see, one thing is that there is a wrong assumption that schools can give social interaction. This is an absolutely wrong idea, because what children learn in the society of school is completely wrong, qualities. They don't have they have lots of enemies and friends. They compete with each other. They only meet same age group people. This is all absolutely unnatural. A child should actually get exposed to different age groups of children, not one age group. So what school does is to put everybody into one kind of age group, And
True.
so please, many people think that schools are good for social interaction. No, it is in a school they learn how to be antisocial.
Mm.
So this is a wrong. See, most things we have misunderstood because we have to somehow justify this, na? So we would say, fine, oh, this may be good, that may be good. No, there is nothing good about schools. Let me tell you this. Absolutely nothing good about schools. It quarantines the children from the real world. It kills their process of learning.
Hmm. So please let us know how to go ahead and enroll and register. Looking
Yeah,
forward.
no. We will, definitely. No, what I mean is that, I'm more excited about more and more people wanting to explore things. Na? That is what it should be. Only when we
Right.
become explorers,
True.
our children get to explore. The problem lies there.
Right.
I'm not interested in you. I'm interested only in
Absolutely.
your children. Please
Absolutely.
understand this.
Absolutely.
Children are priority
Absolutely.
for us.
But
So
I
unless
also,
we, yes,
right.
unless we are willing to, be brutal with ourselves, be truly honest with ourselves, we will not be able to create an environment for children.
True, sir.
Yeah.
Totally agree. Unfortunately, we as parents, we
Yeah.
have been into road schools all our life.
Yes.
We've been parented by parents who had very traditional opinions about school.
Yeah.
So look at the situation we are also at.
Yeah. That's what. Na? So we are in that trap, but it's an interesting trap.
Yeah,
Let's see whether we can find out how to get out of the trap.
definitely.
Yeah, that's the.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Some quick feedback or anything? Then.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, please.
I'm Reneen from Kerala, and I'm a student of NIFT Hyderabad. And such a way, I'm here. Our ma'am, Lakshmi ma'am, sent us some link and told us this will be very wonderful if you're joining. And my kindergartens were I'm connecting to the point. I have been doing all these kindergartens in a different syllabus called ALD without books and all. Now, while hearing this thing, I could connect more to it and being more, what can I say, all this being unknown is being critical and creative and all. That is the point which I got stuck throughout the discussion, and I have been doing some work, and I could relate many of the things easily. And I'm a new and I don't know much about all these things, and I'm very interested and glad. And I feel your talk as a spiritual awakening or something. That was a very smooth and a motive to hear. That is it. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Shubha?
Yeah.
Yes.
It was wonderful. Sorry, it was really wonderful listening to you, and I just hoped it went on. I have one quick question. How about the homes where both parents are needed to work full time and they have to somehow outsource the education to some system? How can we help them? It's
very difficult. It's very
I would
difficult.
love my grandkids to be brought up in this way. I would love my How can we help them?
Yeah. Just when you mentioned that word grandparents, I would like to mention that now the poor children today are under the pressure from not only parents but also grandparents. Because not many grandparents also understand this, even though most of the grandparents had a fantastic childhood themselves. If the grandparents, recollect their childhood, I'm sure that would have been much open, much fantastic, but we are not valuing that, and we are not able to understand how we are throttling the, recently Ranjana had been doing an interesting workshop for grandparents, actually. For grandparents, that is another, so sorry I didn't mention about that. So grandparents are also welcome for this. So no, I would like to share one experience. One of my friend shared this with me, that she's a designer. She used to teach somewhere. So when she came back from her work, her child was, very particular that when I come back, you should be here. And this parent, immediately took a decision to quit the job.
Recording.
On which
Sorry,
website? The
sorry.
same one?
Jinan, please continue.
Sorry. So, so when she is a designer, she had 2 children. So one day when she came home, she found this child waiting outside, and very sad. So, and she just told that the child just told the mother that when I come from school, you should be here. But that was good enough for that mother to resign, and she resigned the next day from the school. And she, so I think, we have to understand that children are priority for us, and we must not, of course, economics is important. I'm not telling that, but if possible, I think we should prioritize children to both parents working, if that is possible.
Our generation did that sacrifice. Our generation did that sacrifice, but today's generation, the competition is too hard.
But they will pay the price. It's a very simple thing. Yeah, they will pay the price. You see, why? Do you know why children are not looking after their parents these days? I'm talking about the young children. You hear many stories of children not bothered about their old parents. It is precisely because children have not learned how to love. In the initial first 5 years of a child's life, the child must learn love, care, all that kind of thing. Unconditional love, that is what the child should imbibe. First 5 years should not be given under a teacher where the child is learning. First, the child is get alienated from their parents without the environment of love. It's extremely important that the child should, experience love in the first 5 years, and not fear, not stress, all that kind of things that we today subject children to. So naturally, the children will turn against us. It's very, very clear, because the child doesn't know the value of that. So very important that a child should experience. And another major, very important thing is that the child must experience old people in their houses. Today, the child, in the name of nuclear family, the child is only seeing their 2 very, young adults. Children must see how old age is happening, how we take care of old age. All these things should be learned experientially. See, today the modern idea is that you can read morality through books, through reading stories, No, you can only learn this by imbibing experientially, So that's a very important thing, So let's not have old age homes unless it is extremely necessary. It is really important that the children should have more people to experience, but not under dadagiri conditions, not under the stress. The children must not have stress from everybody around. Children should be left alone, respected, have more freedom to explore, So it's very, so we need to reimagine this whole damn thing, Other thing that is, again, which I feel very wrong is that today now, again, in the name of economics, we have only 1 child. We should have at least 3 children at home. 3 children is a minimum thing. So it is very important that children should experience other children, and only through that, the child will learn how to share and all that. Of course, you can spoil all the 3. The option is there with you. You see, today, I would like to finish this by telling one very, completely wrong idea that the West is now promoting, which is, now they have caught on to this idea that everything is biological. Cognition is biological, art is biological, and there are a lot of wrong research that is happening in this area. But the most important, thing that we should be careful is that now they are claiming that economics is biological. This is absolutely wrong. If you actually look at possessiveness, possession, that is not part of our biology. You just look around, go to any community that is not connected with the modern community, you will find that nobody ever had a feeling that this is my thing. This is my land. People lived. Things being mine is the beginning of economics. Otherwise, everything is shared. Because you don't possess anything actually. It is the notion that we possess that economics begin to happen. This has to be understood very clearly. So now they are trying to push that economics is biologically rooted. Absolutely no. So I think there has to be more and more people who should really question the modern paradigm at a much deeper level, rather than just looking at doing some farming here and there and all that. No, you will be completely consumed by that, by modernity, if you don't understand philosophically what is wrong with it, fundamentally what is wrong with it. Because we are taking small steps. That's not enough. It has to be a more drastic, more deeper kind of step, to truly understand what is life. Ranjana is shaking too much. Your head?
No, I am talking to Shashi.
Okay. मैं सोचा तुम मेरे को बोल रहा है कि बस हो गया, बंद करो.
नहीं, actually it's 12:30.
Yeah.
We have to slowly.
Yeah.
We would love to hear more of such kinds. Please.
Sure. We will be, please join one of our groups. The WhatsApp number is given and the email is given.
Are you guys in Pune? Placed in Pune?
No. I am right now in Kerala. But we did many of our experiments in Pune. The school was in Pune. In 2011 to 2014, we were having.
Got your reference from one of our. We were working for Unschool in Barnet, which is the name of an institution which is for homeschoolers. Yeah.
But do they unschool? So this is the best
We are
part of the things,
We are trying to unlearn. We are trying
see,
to unlearn what we are.
I know. See, this is the best thing about the modernity. They know how to catch words. Without the meaning, they will catch all the words. Fantastically sounding words, but with no understanding of it. Because that is how we have fragmented, in the modernity, this is how it is fragmented.
It's difficult
we
to
handle
get people
the words
with similar, it's difficult to find people with similar thoughts. So we are also learning in the whole process newly. But it was a very good inspiration. Listening to you was a great inspiration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So anyone else? One more question and then we will close. Chetana, you disappeared completely. Huh?
Hello, sir. Hello.
Yeah. Who is that?
Hello. My name is Manjita. Yes. Manjita. I have come to this webinar the first time, and I have followed all of your works, and I'm really impressed. And I have two queries. Okay. I'm an architect. I'm an architect by profession.
Yes.
Okay. I have two children. One is a 12-year-old, and another one is 5-year-old.
Yes.
So, and my daughter is going to an alternative school. Okay, this is the present scenario is what I'm telling. And now during this lockdown, I haven't sent my 5-year-old for any of this online classes. But I noticed that he gets bored. And I am he stays with in-laws. I stay with my in-laws. So they have seen old people at home, and we have two cousins, so we do interact. But what I see in him is, I need to put in a lot of effort to keep him continuously active. Or he turns to mobile or TV because his sister is on online class. So this makes me feel very internally guilty. And because parents are old, they want TV. I didn't have a TV at home before when we were separate. But when we have come together, now there are 2 TVs in the house.
Okay.
Now, so what has happened is, how do we actually, this becomes more like trying to manage older people and younger people, plus I am working. So now I have just left it. And I'm not teaching my son anything other than language, how to read English, and then I make him chop veggies. And I do all this. Then comes one phase, he says, Mama, I'm bored, I will watch TV. And I'm so exhausted, and I give up. And this is like a daily basis. I have tried a lot of variations. Okay, like I say, then I got some toys also. before I knew that toys are not good.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
And now we have planned to move out of the city.
Yeah.
We have taken a drastic step. We have taken a land outskirts of near Kanakpura Road beyond Ravi Shankar Ashram. We are at Bangalore.
Okay.
So we are planning to start a bit of farming. This is completely different from what we are doing. We are architects by profession. And I even got this thought that instead of sending them to school, why not, when we are constructing our own house, we will get them involved in the construction process.
Yeah.
And but still, I don't have the guts to pull them out of the school, because I feel there is lot of input from my side, and will I be able to provide this input? So, but yeah, I even know that before the Britishers invaded India, the parents used to pass on their profession to their children.
Yeah.
And this was how it was moving on. Then suddenly came this education system where they started studying, and a lot of children started becoming products of this education. So employee mentality. Now we are totally against it, but we are stuck in this entire society of like-minded thinking. Now, how do we break with this? And there is, I don't know whether you are able to make out the confusion I am in.
No. Of course, this is what most people are into, similar confusion. See, I think in the first 12 years now, we should not bother much about children. Well, 12, 13 years, it's very important that children have freedom. They develop, see, it's a matter of what kind of cognitive system that gets developed in the brain. They have to have freedom, they have to have exploration, So don't worry too much about, see, it's a very good idea that if you are building the house, allow them to be part of it. Not only your children, but, use that opportunity to invite more children from surroundings, to be part of that process that will be a fantastic activity actually, and I'm sure you have to, of course, you have to hide from those, activists who will claim that as child labor. That of course is there, because people have not understood schooling is the worst child labor.
Yeah.
There is no other child labor worse than what we are imposing on children in the name of schools. That people have not understood this, So I think that's a good idea. And
you told another thing, that we parents always keep telling a no, repetitive no. And I do that when I see them watching TV, when they are playing games on the mobile. I say no. And by the end of it, I realize that I am telling no for everything.
Yeah.
What is freedom? They want their freedom to do something which I am against. There is complete friction.
Yeah.
So,
but
how do I go about it?
See, in the context of modernity, this freedom is not easy, because the way the modernity has trapped you is to provide all unnecessary things to children. So here, the thing is that, see, for example, I had adopted a child. She was around 1 year. She came to my life. And so I decided to do 3 things. Never say no to her. Always follow her. Never lie to her. So in order to create the condition for saying no, I ensured that certain things are removed from her vicinity. For example, I used to have a camera, an expensive camera. So when child is around, that is not in her, she don't see it. I keep it inside, So I created an environment in which I don't have to say no. Of course, in the modern context, it's going to be difficult because you have to hide everything from modernity, right from what kind of food, television, mobile, everything is not good for children, So it is going to be difficult in the context of modern life, So of course we have to consciously do certain things, and so
I think the first move what we are doing is to shift out of the city. Is a good move.
Yeah, whoever can. Otherwise, they'll have to find out their own ways of,
Okay.
But isn't, I'm just wondering of what you said, Jalan, it's a great exploration. But I'm also wondering, isn't that one way to kind of be as a parent, or it can be very oppressive when I listen to this? What I don't know. I mean, it's sounding a little.
Yeah, I know. Of course, it is very tough to listen to the truth. It's very easy to believe the school, and then we don't have to think anything now. Here, you have to become conscious of everything. That what now Manjita was telling, she was aware that every time she is telling no. My request to whoever has come here is to, just think of how many times you have told no today, yesterday. Now, so next time, immediately you will become aware. Oh, I'm telling no. So the first thing is to begin to become aware of what are we doing with children, See, otherwise, the modern consumerist society will be very happy if you don't think.
Correct.
So they will be very happy with this idea that but they will make you believe that you are a very creative person because you're buying their products. They will make creativity in such a manner that you become a consumer, you are the most creative person, so that they will create an illusion about everything to trap you again and again. So to be aware to this is going to be tough, meaning every moment of your life, you will have to be aware of what is happening. In fact, since that person mentioned the word spirituality, it's actually a possibility for true awakening, actually. In the sense, becoming aware of everything that is happening. That's what I meant. To become present. You don't have to go do an evening meditative, meditation in the evening. You can be meditative throughout the day, which is what children are actually. Children are meditating all through the day. Till we take them away from that meditative state and divide their life into thinking and doing. Yeah. So, okay then.
Yeah.
Manish, last question then. Is that Manish who said, yeah?
Yeah, this is Roshni here. Namaste. I guess I stopped my. So my question was, so what you spoke about was more of an individual level, what I can do at my home, at my place, my children, my parents. How can we bring this entire what you are saying to a system, because the systems are already created. There are so many schools, there are so many the structures where I'm living right now, the buildings. So how can we get this into us? It is easy to say that politics is bad, police wale theek nahi hai, ye theek nahi hai, wo theek nahi hai. But how can I get into that system which has been already created and work on that?
Yeah. So take one step first. First, understand the problem. First step is that all systems are built like this only. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, then the system get built. You see, when the printing press was established in 14th century, there was hardly anybody who could read and write. So the cognitive system all around the world were based on senses. So it took almost 300 years. If you remember the words that is used in the Western history books, Renaissance, there are many terms, and at one time, I think in the 17th century, they call it age of reason. So it took almost 300 years to establish what is called as age of reason. What it meant was that book has taken over everybody's lives. You see, reasoning as a quality can only function when you are dealing with what is known. Actually, age of reason is not to be celebrated. It is the death of creativity. It is the death of unknown. So so what we are now today at this kind of life is a journey that we have undertaken almost 500, 600, 700 years when we began to celebrate the book, the printed word. Now we are celebrating the digital world by absolute mistake, actually. This is going to be more harmful for humanity than the printing press. It is extremely important to reclaim the real world. And it is now, to Roshan, it's going to be extremely difficult, what we are talking about. So I am actually counting another 700 to 800 years, the system to change, provided there is a systematic approach from many, many people in addressing this. 3 or 4 people is not going to make any difference. If there are more and more people who want to really face this as a a long-term thing. I'm talking about long-term as 700 years. Of course, we can wish tomorrow it can happen. I'm not against it. If something can happen like that, very good. But if you actually look at the totally wrong researches that is happening and funded in the Western countries, Western world, sometimes consciously, sometimes by you see, the tragedy there is that even if they want to do good things, their internal system is not making them understand what is good. This is the trap they are in. If you look at what is the, you take the most important science today, which is the cognitive science. Cognitive, if you look at why cognitive science started, which department it started, it will baffle you actually. Cognitive science is actually, everybody would think it is started because they wanted to understand cognition better so that we can reorganize schools, we can, do something. No, the whole research is happening to develop artificial intelligence and computers. It is not to better our children, our lives. So this is the tragedy of modern universities. If you look at the study of psychology, the study on senses, every study, the study on anthropology, every study is done to dominate nature, to dominate people, to make people into consumers. No study is done for true, awakening and true liberation. It's a myth that they are promoting that education is for liberation. No, education is for conditioning. Many people may have good intentions, but good intentions are not enough. To hell with good intentions. It is not intention that the problem is, that you need to fundamentally understand what is really happening around us. And now they have given a fantastic word to you to trap you again. It's called critical thinking. Now that is being sold to everyone, critical thinkers, and design thinking is another one, of course. I see. No, I'm asking, how can you be critical of anything? Because you have read 10 books. You have no idea about anything actually. You have read 10 books, and your criticality will come from one of them. No? So this is another myth, this whole critical thinking. It is not going to happen. Critical thinking can only happen provided you have any personal experience of anything. That have you seen anything? Do you know anything fundamentally to be critical of anything? So these are trap words. Don't fall into these words. So it will be very nice if people like Roshan and Chetana and all that, can, truly collaborative, this is what we also want to do. If we are, suppose you make me the Prime Minister tomorrow, surely I will, kill all the schools. No more schools. No doubt.
There is a child in one of the schools that we go to. Since 7 years, he's asking me for one grenade that can blast the school.
That's it. The child knows.
Every time I meet him, where is that grenade?
Yeah. Somehow find a way to replace me with Modi. I'm child. With Amit Shah on my side, I will completely finish all the schools. Absolutely. Okay then. Thank you very much. I hope we can, collaborate and take this forward. Please feel free to connect with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jananji.
Thank you, sir. Very, very nice session.